And we are back one more time for bonus episode number 2, also known as regular podcast 194.
The experimental bonus. The experimental podcast.
Probably do this a couple more times.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And we're the horror guys, and we're still going to talk about horror movies.
Oh, yeah. We got a bunch of them this time. Overload. What do we got?
Well, we got Cat Peoples. Lots of Cat People from 1942 and 1982.
Ooh.
And we got Halloween Ends, the latest installment in the
I bet it really
Halloween
didn't.
trilogy, sort of, the recent trilogy. And we got Werewolf by Night.
Oh.
And we got Mockingbird Lane, which probably a lot of people are not familiar with. It
sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
We'll get to that.
Lane. Who lives on Mockingbird Lane?
Freddy Krueger?
Monsters.
Oh, yeah. All right, so anyway, we've got 5 movies for you this time. And just to remind you, since you are already listening because you are on our bonus newsletter at horrorbulletin.com, we won't need to push that. But we will point out that everything you've read this month is available in print or ebook. Go over to horrorguys.com/monthly, and you can pick it up there.
And those books look sharp.
They do. Nice covers.
I'm a little biased, but I still say they look sharp.
Well, let's get right to it then. What do we got movie-wise? Where are we starting?
We're going to start with The Old Cat People from 1942.
Meow.
An old black and white film.
Meow.
It was directed by Jacques Tourneur. Tourneur, you think? Tournay?
Yes, he's
Okay.
French.
Yes. Written by DeWitt Bodine. Stars Simone Simon, Tom Conway, and Kent Smith. Runtime was a short hour and 13 minutes, and there's a trailer on YouTube. So before the 1982, which you might have thought, if you saw that Cat People in 1982, that was not the original. That was a remake.
That was a remake.
Yeah.
Oh, the original from 42 is considered a classic. It's very well respected in its own right.
I didn't know about it until recently. I saw the Cat People when it came out in 1982, and I had no idea it was a remake.
I think most critics would tell
decades.
you the first one was better.
I disagree. Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Spoiler-free. It's pretty tame, but it is interesting. Gender roles and expectations were different in 1942, and this movie shows that really clearly.
Yes, it does.
The cinematography and direction are top-notch, and there's suspense and intrigue, and all in all, it's a watchable classic.
Yeah, I thought it was.
It's a watchable classic. That's your
Watchable.
words.
A watchable
You didn't
classic.
gush over it, did you?
I didn't. It was a watchable classic.
All right. Well, spoil it for us.
I didn't hate it, yeah. A woman, Irina, at the zoo, does a drawing of a panther in a cage. Oliver walks over and he flirts with her. He sees that she's drawn a panther with a dagger through it. Well, she takes him home to her apartment and invites him in. She says that she's from Serbia, and he's her first real friend in America. They can hear the lions in the zoo nearby. She says that sometimes the panther screams and it sounds like a woman. And she gives an explanation of Serbian history, how King John drove out the Mamelukes. They were Satan worshippers and witches there, and King John got rid of all of that. And they agree to meet again tomorrow night. He's a well-behaved gentleman, like they were in 1942.
He comes over for tea, and he stays till all the way to 6 p.m. and leaves when the clock strikes 6. Because anything more would be uncivilized.
Would be improper, yes. Well, Oliver, who works at a shipping company, brings a cat to work. He brought it for Irina. And that night he gives her the cat, but the cat hates her. Cats just don't like me, she laments. Well, the pair go to the pet store to return the cat and exchange it for something different, but all the animals inside go wild. And she steps back out and the animals calm down again. Which I kind of wondered how they filmed that. How did they get a room full of animals to... Because it looked like a real thing, not a trick or a video effect.
Oh, they could have played loud noises or,
something.
Put something in the air or just made loud. They didn't have the animal cruelty rules as today. Half them
true.
birds probably died making this film.
Might have, yeah. Well, the lady inside
Claims that most animals are a little psychic.
Thank you. I lost my place there. I touched the screen in the wrong place. Later, they profess their love for each other on their second date. They work fast. He wants to kiss her, but she refuses. If she gives in to that, something bad will happen. Well, some time passes, and there's a wedding party. And coworker Alice and the Commodore talk about the bride being a little strange. Well, a stranger woman comes over and says something to Irina in Serbian. The woman is one of the cat people, which is a silly thing that Oliver laughs at. They do get married, but she says they can't consummate the marriage, which he reluctantly agrees to wait. Well,
he's like, what?
Yeah. Guess she didn't clearly explain that ahead of time.
Yeah, he's way more understanding than you'd expect.
Uh-huh. She's tempted to let Oliver into her bedroom, but well, she hears the big cat yowling at the zoo and changes her mind. At home, she plays with her pet canary, and it ends up dead. She takes the dead bird to the zoo and feeds it to the panther. Perfectly normal. She tells Oliver that the bird died of fear, and she had to feed the bird to the panther. Oliver says Irina needs help with her silly beliefs, a psychiatrist. And she tells all to Dr. Judd. Women in her village can turn into cats, but only when they embrace a lover, and the cat women then kill their lovers. So this is why she don't want to have sex.
So they have sex, and then they kill the men they have sex with.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little different from the sequel.
Uh-huh. Irina finds out that Alice suggested Dr. Rudd to Oliver, and she's not happy about him talking about their personal stuff with his friends.
I guess this was a pretty common thing in the first half of the 20th century. The wife or the woman would go to the psychiatrist, and then the psychiatrist would report back to the husband.
Yeah.
He knows who is paying the bills.
So much for patient confidentiality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, Alice confesses she's in love with Oliver, too, and he's starting to have doubts about his own love for Irina. This whole not consummating, I think, is wearing on him. One day at the zoo, Irina notices the key to the cage is out. She hands it back to the zookeeper. Dr. Judd says that she fears the panther as an instrument of death. He's trying to psychoanalyze it, the whole thing. Not believe in her story at all.
No.
Yeah. Well, she tells him to get lost. She's done with this psychobabble stuff. Oliver gets after her for not wanting her to help herself, and then goes to the office to work late. Irina calls the office, and Alice is there working late, too.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Well, Irina follows Alice home, and Alice gets spooked. Something kills several sheep, and big cat footprints become human-looking footprints. That night, she dreams of cats, Dr. Judd, and King John. Well, the next morning at the zoo, Irene sees the forgotten keys again, and this time she doesn't turn them in. Once again, she follows Alice home. Alice has gone to her building's pool, and she hears a giant cat come in, growling and prowling. And she never actually sees anything, but then Irina walks in and asks where Oliver is. Well, when Alice gets out of the pool, her robe has been shredded.
I have issues. I have questions.
Yeah.
Both the sheep in the park and the Alice in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Irina has not had sex with anybody.
No.
Why
and she
is
said
there a cat?
And she said, well...
She said you had to have sex with somebody to turn into a cat.
Well, I kind of have to give the leeway like I did in the remake, where they can change voluntarily. But if they consummate, if they have sex, they have to change, and they can't become human again until they kill.
This is your logic. This is not said in the movie.
I know, but
it makes sense. All right.
Well, that's the only way it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Alice talks to Dr. Judd about cat people. Twice she's been followed by something that was not human. I believe it was the cat form of Irina. So Judd, Alice warns Judd not to talk to Irina alone, and he shows her his sword cane.
Everybody needs one of those.
Yeah, handy for self-defense. Judd talks to Irina and threatens to have her committed. She doesn't want to be helped. Well, Irina tells Oliver that Dr. Judd is helping her, but he's decided to get a divorce instead. Dr. Judd suggests an annulment, because one cannot divorce an insane person. He states that, and he offers to have the commitment papers drawn up. Things were different then. You
want out of your marriage? There's more than one way to take care of that.
Yeah, we'll just have her declared crazy. And, and as far as that, so she's, assuming this is a delusion about the turning, yes, doctor, I can turn into a cat. She's perfectly functional, she dresses and feeds herself and, looks perfectly normal and acts perfectly normal otherwise. And, this is enough to have somebody committed on.
Well, yeah,
Right,
because that ain't normal.
Yeah. But, yeah.
The fact that she's not hurting anybody doesn't have anything to do with it.
Things were different back then.
Yeah.
And gender roles.
What would
and all
society
that.
say?
Yeah, yeah. Oliver and Alice work late again, wink, wink. And the phone rings. No one is there. Could it be Irina? No, it's a great big black panther locked in the office with them. But suddenly it's gone. They smell Irina's perfume as they run outside into the fog. They call Dr. Judd to warn him, but Irina walks in on Judd during the call. Well, Dr. Judd embraces Irina and takes her into his arms. They kiss, and she smiles evilly. Dr. Judd then watches as Irina turns into a panther and attacks him. See? Because they kissed, and so attack mode is activated.
This time, yes.
Attack mode is activated. Oliver and Alice rush in to help, but they don't see Irina on her way out. Judd is dead, but Irina is gone. See, she killed so she can go back to human again. Half of Judd's sword cane is gone. It broke off inside the cat. Well, Irina walks to the zoo holding her wounded shoulder. She opens up the panther cage and lets the big cat out, which promptly gets hit by a car.
Oops.
Yeah. Oliver comes to the big cat cage and finds Irina on the ground, dead with half the sword stuck in her back.
So, Judd was killed by a cat. They then found a cat out in the middle of the road that was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah,
so
there's a dead girl, too.
Gonna...
So, yeah, there's no proof of anything.
But she's got the sword in her.
She might have fallen on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. There's many ways you could logic yourself out of that one.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, this is another one of those, is she really a cat or is she crazy stories? This one's a classic, but it's awfully dated by now. It's got some fairly complex ideas about marriage, chatting, infidelity, and consummation. Chatting? Dating. That's a typo.
Whoops.
Marriage, dating, infidelity, and consummation, which are all pretty radical for 1942. There's no commentary on chatting in this one.
Well, he came to our apartment and they chatted.
Well, it makes interesting use of light and shadow, and it all looks good, especially for a black and white film. Turns out, in the end, she really was a killer cat. But we don't see a transformation, there's no blood, but there is a lot of suspense and intrigue.
Yeah, the lighting and shadows were really interestingly used in this. Really, really well done.
Yeah, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. All right, which takes us in 40 years later, 1982. The remake, surprisingly enough, is called Cat People. Directed by Paul Schrader, written by DeWitt Bodine, Alan Ormsby, and Paul Schrader. Stars Nastasia Kinski, Malcolm McDowell, and John Hurd. Hour and 58 minutes, almost 2 freaking hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler-free, what happens?
It's a very 1980s journey of a young woman coming to grips with what she really is. Quite a bit different and a lot more graphic than the 1942 original. The cast is good, the story is interesting, the effects are pretty limited, but okay. And it was a little long, which the horror guys agree on, but there's a split decision on like versus dislike.
Okay, and which one of us hated it? Which one of us liked and disliked it? You'll have to listen in. Stay tuned.
Spoil it for us.
As credits roll, we watch tribal people out in the African desert. They tie a woman to a tree and leave her there. That night, a big cat comes along and checks her out. In the morning, the woman is sent into a cave with the cat. And that's all. In the modern day, Irina Galler is at the airport in New Orleans. Paul introduces himself. He's her brother. She meets a woman at Paul's home named Female. No, not Female. Famale.
It's spelled that way. Yeah, and she's got a funny story about how she was named that way with a misunderstanding of what female meant. And so that's what they named her. And
Famale.
And it's pronounced Famale, but it's just spelled tamale. It's just spelled female.
Well, Paul shows Irina pictures of their parents. They were lion tamers in the circus. Irina grew up in the orphanage, and this is the first time she's seen Paul since she was 4.
And he's kind of creepy.
Yeah, he is. He's weird from the get-go.
But it's, Malcolm McDowell, and he usually is.
I wonder if he's that weird in real life.
He can probably turn it off and on.
That night, Paul sneaks into Irina's room, and we see that he's both athletic and growls in the dark. Does this little trick where he jumps up on the end of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I read in the trivia where they filmed that backwards.
Yeah,
he started out on
the
top of the bed and bounces
jumps off.
backwards.
Yeah, but it's really effective. It
looks good, yeah.
Yeah.
Ruthie is a prostitute. She finds some slime on top of the bed and a huge cat under it. The cat then mauls her as she screams. Oliver Yates, Alice Perrin, and Joe Cray are there from the zoo, and they call them in to pick up the black leopard the following morning. They shoot the cat with sedatives and carry it to the zoo in a net. The next morning, and the prostitute just seems to be gone. Did she run away, or
she got away?
She did.
Yeah.
Okay, she did.
That's
survive.
why he's stuck in tiger form or cat form, because he didn't kill her.
Right?
Yeah, she got away.
The next morning, Irina goes wandering through the surprisingly empty city of New Orleans along with her guidebook. And this is another one of those
lots of shots of empty streets and
Yeah.
just her walking along.
That's just not the way it works in real life.
Or she'll encounter one person. You know, I don't think so.
No. Paul's not in his office, so she goes to the zoo. She's strangely attracted to the big black leopard. The assistants, Alice and Joe, state that the cat is perfectly healthy, and Oliver says that they'll probably end up cutting his claws, pulling his fangs, and he'll be fine. Times were different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to zoofy it.
Oliver notices that Irina is still there watching the cat long after dark. When he goes out there, she runs away and hides in a tree. And she gets up that tree really fast.
She's really
How'd
athletic,
she do
too.
that?
Huh.
Oliver then takes Irina out for oysters. Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Is there anything more horrific than oysters?
Oysters on the half shell. Slurp them down. Just kind of let them slide down your throat. Ew.
He offers her a job working at the zoo, and the next morning at the zoo, Oliver stops in at the gift shop, which is where Irina works now. Alice meets Irina and offers to show her around after work, and Irina mentions that she's a virgin, which shocks Alice. A strange woman says, "Mi hermana," to Irina, my sister. They have no idea why.
So there's some things in common with the original.
Oh, yeah.
Like that one. The weird
Yeah, they
woman
take a lot
showing
of the
up.
things so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Joe annoys the leopard and loses his arm in the juiciest way possible.
Yeah, that was pretty graphic.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Irina and Oliver are there when it happens. Oliver goes out for his gun, and when he returns, the big cat is gone.
Huh.
That night, Paul returns. He says that he was in prison praying for the condemned.
Well, he was in prison, but it wasn't a
Yeah.
human prison.
He says she's in love with Oliver, and he's really creepy about it. He says they're the same. She's always known it. He starts ripping at her clothes. His eyes change, and she does a super acrobatic flip out of the second-story window to get away from him and gets the police involved. Well, a police officer comes to Oliver and Alice and shows them a cell in the basement where the leopard that they had in the zoo before had been hidden.
Yeah, apparently so.
There are bodies
Or, I mean,
there.
that's how it looks to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are bodies there that had been fed to the big cat, and they think it was Paul who kept the cat in the cage and fed it people. And I think Famale was involved too, because they arrested her.
They arrest her because there's clear evidence that she was bringing people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's known to have had Paul is known to have had mental issues in the past. They think Paul was intending to kill Irina too. Irina goes to stay with Oliver at his place. They have a fun afternoon, followed by lots of kissing, but Irina doesn't want to have sex, although she won't explain why.
We know why.
Well, in the first movie, it was about embracing and kissing. Nobody has sex in that first movie.
Right, because
This
it was
one-
1942.
Yeah.
This one, it does take sex.
It takes a little more in
for
this
the
one.
transformation, yeah.
Well, Paul is at the cemetery taking pictures of random women. He and one of the women go home and have sex, but he fails miserably. Can't do it. But she persists, and he really gets into it. And he wakes up bloody on the bathroom floor, and the woman he was with is in the bedroom, torn apart.
And I think I got the impression that he wasn't necessarily not able to. I think he was bothered by the
didn't want
idea.
to.
He didn't want to kill again. He's reluctant to.
Well, he didn't strike me as the type that would bother him. I don't think he minded killing.
I think it was bothering him a little. Yeah,
All right.
I think that's why. But then she persisted, and he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she kind of forced the issue.
Yeah.
That night, Irina gets naked and goes wandering out in the bayou. Her vision gets funky, and she starts crawling through the woods. She chases down and kills a rabbit. Detective Brandt calls in Oliver and Alice. That big cat has killed again. Irina tells Oliver that they may never be able to sleep together, but he's okay with that. She's afraid for him, but she doesn't elaborate. Paul watches them together.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the person they had sex with that they kill.
No, it could be you got to kill somebody.
Because Paul killed the zoo assistant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been more than a week and the police can't find the leopard. Paul breaks into Irina's room and says only by making love to him can she keep him from killing again. They need to live together as mates like their parents did. They were brother and sister too.
Ew.
Ew. She stabs him in the hand and runs out, and then we see his hand turning into a big paw. Oliver comes home and finds Paul in a half-transformed state, and then he just finishes in turning into a big cat. Alice comes in and shoots it with a shotgun. They look outside and see Irina crying over the dead cat. The next morning, Oliver does an autopsy on the dead leopard, and a human arm pops out. It releases yellow gas, and then it dissolves.
That's a nasty scene.
Irina has a dream where she beats Paul one more time out in the desert, and he explains about the leopards and the humans and the souls, and she understands it all now. They could only have sex with their siblings. Anyone else causes them to change into a cat until they kill someone. No more Paul.
No.
Alice goes...
She's stuck there. Yeah, she does. They were the last two of their kind.
Alice goes for a run and stops by the pool for a swim. She hears a big cat outside and jumps into the water. The lights go out and she panics. Irina comes in, and Alice yells that Irina wants to kill her. Except the two have barely interacted at all so far in this film. You remember a scene together with these two?
That did seem... Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
the gift
they
shop
went out one time, you're right.
Yeah, they know each other.
But there was no hostility there.
Not really, no.
Alice calls Oliver and warns him about Irina. Irina leaves Oliver upstairs to the bedroom, losing her clothes along the way. He doesn't question his good luck this time and follows her right upstairs. Later, in the middle of the night, she gets up and looks at herself in the mirror. Nothing. She goes back to bed and then finally changes into a cat.
Mm-hmm.
The cat doesn't kill Oliver, but instead runs outside. The police find it, and Oliver and Alice go to see. They do have a big black panther cornered out on the bridge. There are cops everywhere, helicopters, news crews, and lots of bystanders. The cat looks at Oliver and jumps off the bridge. The cops shoot at it, but probably miss. We can't tell. Oliver leaves and goes to his house in the bayou, where he finds the body of the caretaker hanging in a tree. Irina's inside the house, and she admits she killed the caretaker. She tells him to shoot her, but he refuses. She wants to have sex again so she can go be with her own kind. He's like, all right. And they go at it one more time, even though he knows exactly what's been going on at this point. He does tie her to the bed first, like, you know, for safety reasons.
For safety reasons, yes.
Well, sometime later, Oliver and Alice are working at the zoo. He goes outside to the big cat enclosure and looks at the big black panther in its cage. He feeds it a piece of meat and scratches it on its chin.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened to Irina? Huh.
She's a pet now.
Okay, this is very, very 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps some aspects of the 42 film, but goes into a lot more detail and is a lot more graphic in all respects. The original didn't have a brother character, and it was more focused on Irina's sanity, where here, Paul is obviously some kind of shape changer. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it when it came out in my teens, and I was very disappointed in the lack of people changing into cats. There's one transformation scene right at the very end, and it's very, very fast. Yeah, no Wolfman here.
No, not really.
We're told the rules, that only siblings can have sex. If they have it with someone else, they turn into a cat and stay that way until they kill someone. And we've kind of already talked about Kevin's theory that they can change anytime they really wanted to.
But when they have sex, they're stuck. Until they kill.
Yes.
Yeah, and they can't be human again.
Malcolm McDowell is suitably creepy, playing the same character he always plays, only with more growling. Even though he gets second billing, he doesn't really get a lot of screen time. Nastasia Kinski is fine here, playing the innocent who already knows that she isn't an innocent. John Hurd and Annette O'Toole are in this too.
Yeah, they're fine.
They're all right.
Yeah.
Overall, it was too long and far too different from the original to really be what you'd call a remake. They could have changed a few additional details, given it a different name, and it might have improved the experience significantly. No, I didn't really care for it too much.
But I did. I liked it quite a bit. I liked it better this time around than when I saw it way back.
I think they were
Yeah.
just making a movie and they were trying to be too edgy with the nudity and stuff.
There was a
lot of nudity in
it. Yeah.
John Hurd read the script and he thought, "Is this a porno?"
Yeah. Yeah, there's full frontal, not just topless nudity.
Quite a lot of it, actually, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You watch anything on TV this week?
We saw Mockingbird Lane, which came out in 2012. This was a pilot. They were trying to reboot the Munsters, and they did for this one episode. And we saw it.
It got really high ratings. Everybody seemed to like the pilot, but the network just fizzled out on the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Bryan Singer. He's the X-Men guy.
Yeah.
Written by him and Norb Liebman and Ed Haas. Stars Jerry O'Connell, from Sliders.
Yeah.
Portia de Rossi, from Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
And Charity Wakefield, no comment.
From
Don't
Stuff.
know. From Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, all the actors in it had already done stuff and did stuff since.
Yes.
Yeah, they were all people you recognizable faces.
Runtime here was 40 minutes, so the whole thing is pretty short. Trailer in the show notes if you've never heard of it or don't know what you're getting into.
It's fun and you should check it out.
Yeah. Spoiler free. Well, like we said, this was a pilot for a reboot of the Munsters. Never made it past this first episode. Grandpa Munster here is very powerful and menacing this time around. You remember, he's freaking Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
He's the original Dracula. He's not just some vampire guy.
Yeah, in the first time around Munsters, he was kind of a doof and kind of innocuous, and yeah, he's not here so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much darker
He's a killer.
And more violent than the original. People die.
Yeah.
And it still has quite a bit of humor as well, though. The cast is great, the effects are really good, and it left us wanting more.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, Jerry O'Connell as Herman Munster, as a Frankenstein character, that just doesn't make sense. But he did fine.
He did. Yeah.
This is
and it's a different take.
This is
on it.
not a silly comedy the way the original was. There's not a lot of dad jokes and stuff. It's more situational. What if monsters were real and they have some funny stuff going on.
And it does have a lot of humor.
Oh, yeah,
I
it
thought
does.
It was very funny, but also kind of creepy, too.
So
They definitely up to the horror in it.
Oh, yeah. It definitely is horror. What happens?
Yeah. Well, we begin with a scout troop out camping in the woods. Something jumps from the bushes and grabs one of the kids and attacks the scoutmaster. It could be a werewolf. Yep, definitely a werewolf. And in the morning, the shaken scouts hiding in a vehicle ask, "Where's Eddie Munster?" Well, he's over there standing in the woods naked. Credits roll. Marilyn Munster talks to the realtor about buying the spooky old house on Mockingbird Lane. But the realtor doesn't want to. The former owner was a notorious serial killer. There were dozens of graves in the backyard. There could be bodies still hidden in the walls. Marilyn thinks that sounds perfect. She looks normal, but she's definitely weird. The family has moved because of Eddie's misadventure. Eddie's father Herman is avoiding telling Eddie what really happened. They're only telling Eddie that he has a condition and that a baby bear attacked those scouts. That night, 2 large crates are delivered to the house. Something may be moving inside, and the delivery guys just run for it. Well, it's Grandpa and Lily, who make a very cool entrance.
Yeah, and this probably is the scene with the best special effects in the movie.
Yeah, he comes
The one
out
box open up and a bunch of thousands of rats come out.
and form a pile that transforms into Grandpa.
And then the other box opens up and it's just smoke and mist that turns into Lily.
Yeah, and then...
Both of them are naked.
And she,
And she has spiders that come out of nowhere and they weave a
her
dress around her.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a very cool scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Herman and Lily wonder if they did something wrong raising Eddie. Because, he's going to find out, and since they can't keep blaming baby bears on the random attacks, what are they going to do? Well, Marilyn and Grandpa want to tell Eddie about his condition, but Lily and Herman both want to wait. Eddie knows his family is lying to him, but not what about. Well, Herman collapses. Grandpa uses electricity to resuscitate him. He blew out his heart because he loves too much. Herman doesn't want to give up how this heart makes him feel. So Grandpa reluctantly patches it together, but warns him it's not going to last. He needs a new one. Well, Grandpa makes cookies for the neighbors with a little bit of his own blood in the jam filling.
What happens if you eat or drink Dracula's blood?
It makes them blood slaves if they ingest it. So he's got them doing chores and painting the house. Grandpa warns Marilyn that he's going to start drinking again. Yeah.
And they all know what that means.
Yeah, it's not alcohol that he's talking about. Well, Eddie goes to his new scout group and introduces Herman and Grandpa. When Lily comes in, Grandpa notices that Scoutmaster Steve's heart beats in sync with Herman's. He would be a perfect transplant. Well, Grandpa and Marilyn give Eddie a graphic lesson about food and the circle of life in the woods. Grandpa eats a deer, all while in his winged, full-out vampire form. And Grandpa and Herman talk about the donor for the new heart. Herman is against it, but Grandpa invites Scoutmaster Steve over for dinner, a very awkward meal. Grandpa plans to kill Steve, drink his blood, and give Herman his heart.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, Lily and Herman have a private discussion about telling Eddie that he's a werewolf. Marilyn likes Steve and tries to shoo him out the door, but it's too late. Grandpa changes into his demonic bat monster form and goes after him. And Marilyn tries to intervene, but while backing away, Steve falls down the basement stairs and dies. Okay, well,
Oops.
no, didn't kill him, but he's still dead. Well, Eddie tells Herman he knows about puberty, but that's not what Herman wants to explain. Yes, Eddie's a werewolf, and he's not happy about it. He wants to be a vegetarian. I can't be a vegetarian werewolf.
That is a problem.
Yeah. Well, Herman says he can be a human vegetarian, and what the werewolf does when he changed, that's okay too. And Eddie goes back inside. Well, Herman's heart stops, and he falls off the roof. And he wakes up in the basement lab. He's got Steve's heart, and Grandpa is slurping Steve juice through a tube. And
Steve juice, yes.
Yeah, he looks a lot younger and a lot more energetic after a good drink. Well, Herman and Lily get Eddie a semi-invisible dragon named Spot to watch over him when it's time to change.
And that was all
And
we were
that's
going to
where
get
it
at
left
that.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it was takes a lot of the actual real horror elements and makes it a bit more realistic than what the old show was.
Mm-hmm.
It adds a lot more believability to it, but it is still funny.
Yeah.
The special effects here are quite good. Herman has scars, but otherwise he looks pretty normal, as so does pretty much everybody else.
Yeah, if you saw him, you'd think that he was just, he had a bad accident or major surgeries or something.
A tattoo around his neck even.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until the very end, when we see Grandpa looking younger, that we were actually sure that he was wearing old age makeup before. That also was very well done.
Yeah, it was.
We're like, is he
he's
wearing
not-
makeup, or is he
he's
just
not
got
really
weird
that
skin
old.
looking, right?
Yeah, he's not really that old, is he? It's Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, and then at the end he looked quite a lot younger, and we were like,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. That's what they did. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot darker and more violent than the pure goofy comedy of the original. Grandpa here is especially entertaining. He's creepy and snarky combined. Marilyn also has a good upgrade from the original. I mean, back in the original, she was a normal girl, like a teenager, wanting to do teenager-y things. And here she's more of a Wednesday Addams type.
Mm-hmm. She's fully on board and fully
Yeah.
monstrous without,
Mentally
being
a monster, yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The problem here is that other than just being about a weird family, it might have been limited on where they could have gone with it in the future. I mean, a lot of the stuff in before was like Herman trying to get a job and people screaming and falling over, and that's not going to happen
Here
here.
he'd just walk in and apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, it was really good. The pilot was well received, but the network didn't pick it up, so this is all we're going to get. We'd both like to watch more of this, though.
Yeah, very well done.
Time for some fan fiction, people.
Yeah.
And then we've got a comic book.
Werewolf by Night.
Okay, it's not a comic book.
Well, but Marvel. Marvel Comics did it. Yeah. Directed by Michael Giacchino.
Yes, and he has done music for many, many very famous movies. He does a lot of the Marvel movies. He's done a lot of sci-fi movies. And this is his first job directing.
And he did a mighty fine job.
Yes, he did.
Written by Heather Quinn, Peter Cameron, and Jerry Conway. Stars Gail Garcia Bernal.
He was the adult man in Old, M. Night Shyamalan's, aging movie.
Oh, yeah.
He was the original father.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Then the kids got older.
Yeah. Harriet Sampson Harris, Kirk R. Thatcher, Eugenie Bondurant.
Yes.
Bondurant.
Kirk R. Thatcher. There's a name you don't see very often. You know who he was?
No.
1984, Star Trek 4. He was the punk kid on the bus with a loud radio.
No.
And he's done very, very little since then.
His claim to fame.
Yes, he's gotten quite a lot older, too. At 40 years.
But there's a lot of recognizable faces in this.
Yeah. 52 minutes long trailer in the show notes. What happens spoiler free?
Only 52 minutes. It's a short one.
Yeah, this is not a full-length movie.
This was a lot of fun. Classic Universal movie monster meets Tales from the Crypt meets Marvel action. The cast and the effects were great. The story is simple but good. Short, too, at less than an hour, so it moves really fast, and it is well worth the watch.
Most of the complaints I've seen about this one is it should have been longer.
Yeah.
There should have been more to it.
Yeah, there could have been.
But I guess this is supposed to be the first of many Halloween specials from Marvel, so there will be more next year.
Sounds good to me.
Well, we begin with the Family Marvel Studios logo in black and white with very dramatic music. It's not the usual stuff. A 1940s-style title card appears, and then the narrator mentions that monsters exist alongside the superheroes, including the Bloodstone family, who control the Bloodstone weapon. Tonight is the funeral of Ulysses Bloodstone. Hunters have gathered from around the globe to decide who will next wield the Bloodstone. Well, that's all very dramatic.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the room is full of very strange-looking characters. They all look like, comic book hunter-type people, don't they?
They sure do.
The only bit of color in the room is the Bloodstone, which is red. There are all manner of monster heads hanging on the walls. Old Man Bloodstone was quite the hunter. His daughter Elsa Bloodstone wants the stone, as does Jack Russell and all the others. And there's a scene there where one guy asks Jack, "Did you kill that one up there?" And he's like, "No, I didn't kill any of these, but I fought with that one." Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was Man-Bat or Dracula. It was some kind of bat-looking thing.
Oh, yeah, it was Man-Bat.
I'm not that familiar with the comics to know who he fought.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Verussa, Ulysses' widow, explains that there's to be a ceremonial hunt, and this group of 6 monster hunters has been invited to participate. Ulysses himself attends as a sort of animatronic corpse.
Very crypt keeper.
You think that was really his body, or was that just a statue made to look like him?
I think they animated his real corpse.
Okay.
Because they were being that macabre.
Yeah, I mean, it looks very fake. It's an artificial animatronic-looking thing, like like the Crypt Keeper, and I'm sure that's what the characters were seeing too. It wasn't supposed to be real.
Yeah, but I think that's what they did because it's gross and they could.
Well, he teases that a monster unlike any they've seen will soon be released on the grounds for them to hunt. The winner gets the Bloodstone, which will be embedded in the creature's back. Well, Jack gets selected to go first, accompanied by a flaming tuba.
There's a lot of nice touches.
I don't know what the flaming tuba was about.
Just symbolism. Yeah.
There's a huge garden maze that holds the monster somewhere. One by one, the others go in as well. Elsa finds a giant smoking footprint and then kills the Asian guy with his own amputated hand. All right. But we see that Jack Russell knows the monster personally. Turns out it's Man-Thing from the comics. He's been captured, and Jack is not really here for what we thought he was. He's here to release the monster.
Uh-huh.
Jack helps patch up Elsa's wounded leg. It's not a wooden leg.
Wounded leg, yeah.
Jack says that I'm not that kind of a hunter. Jack doesn't want the stone. He just wants to help the monster get out. Elsa just wants the stone. Could they maybe partner up?
Well, they each want something different. So yeah.
Jack tells her that the monster's name is Ted, and that she can't be afraid of him, or else.
And I had to look this up with Man-Thing. I wasn't familiar enough with Man-Thing. He's psychically and physically combustible. If you're afraid of him, he'll burn you to death just with his touch.
Men burn at the touch of fear.
Yeah, so don't be afraid if you see Man-Thing.
Well, anyway, Man-Thing, or Ted, kills Jovan right in front of Elsa, but she's not afraid of him because Jack has explained things to her. Jack and Elsa then blow up the wall and let Man-Thing out into the swamp, but then the rest of the hunters converge around the Bloodstone. Jack tries to pick it up, but he can't. Yes, he's a monster himself.
Could it be he's the werewolf by night?
No. You see, the werewolf by night I'm familiar with was J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut who went to the moon, and I don't know exactly what happened anymore, but he came back a werewolf.
Yeah.
This was from like way back in the 60s or 70s. I have not read any of these recently.
They must have redone it.
Yeah, it must have been. Anyway, Jack and Elsa wake up in a cage. She's afraid of him, but he points out that the full moon isn't for another 5 days. Elsa said the Bloodstone can transform him without the full moon. Oops. But he gets her scent and thinks that he can avoid killing her if he remembers her as the wolf. He warns Verussa to kill him now as a human, because later there won't be any mercy. Well, that was nice of him.
Yeah, it was.
Verussa then pulls out the Bloodstone and says some magic words. Red light flashes, and Jack changes into a werewolf.
They're in trouble now.
The werewolf then tears open the bars and immediately gets out. Elsa fights the other hunters while the werewolf takes care of all the guards. Verussa nearly kills the werewolf with the Bloodstone, but Elsa intervenes. The werewolf starts to attack Elsa, but then he finally does recognize her smell and leaves her behind. Man-Thing appears just in time to kill Verussa.
Explosively.
Yeah, it goes badly for her.
Well, she looks at him and screams in terror, and that's the end.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Elsa then tells the butler to clean up the mess because he works for her now.
Mm-hmm.
And the butler's like,
New sheriff in town.
all right. Next morning, Jack wakes up and Man-Thing has made him coffee and breakfast.
Best of buddies.
How does a thing as big and clumsy as Man-Thing crack eggs and fry them?
I don't know.
Well, Ulysses channels the Crypt Keeper really well. The whole thing is in black and white, just like the old 1940s film The Wolf Man. The only splash of color in the whole thing is the red bloodstone, which not only gives the story a noir feel, but also helps disguise the buckets of blood that would logically be here with these battles. Disney/Marvel isn't big on gushing blood splatters. Although there was at least one scene that I noticed where blood got all over the camera lens.
Yeah.
He slashes somebody and it's splashed, but it's black,
But it was
so
black
you can't tell.
It was black and white blood, so yeah.
There's not exactly a transformation scene, as all we get is an animated shadow on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
We see Elsa's fear as she sees what's happening, and behind her on the wall we see the werewolf appear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like a morphing kind of thing.
But it was kind of cartoony, and I thought it was appropriate.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
The whole thing was fun, and the story was really super simple. There was a fight over a jewel, and monsters were involved.
Yeah.
It's got an interesting look with the black and white and animated stuff. The acting is good. The special effects are good, although maybe not as good as I'd expect from Marvel. Still, for a horror episode from Marvel, it was a good start.
Yeah, big thumbs up from me.
Yeah, we both liked that.
Yeah.
More
good things? Well,
we're sort of neutral on the cat
good-
people.
the
We
good
both
things
liked
have ended.
Mockingbird. We both liked Werewolf. And we absolutely love Halloween Ends.
oh, do we have to talk about this?
Wait, you're face palming. What?
Halloween Ends, brand new in 2022. The exciting climax to the... I was so looking forward... Well,
It's not just the end of the trilogy. It's
mean,
supposed to be the end of the whole 30-year, whatever, 40-year.
I knew better because the first two in this trilogy really
Sucked.
sucky.
Yes.
And this just... Oh, yeah.
Man, this was bad.
Oh, I was so disappointed.
So they had Halloween, the remake from, I don't know, it was 2018 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it had Jason in it.
Michael.
Not Jason, Michael.
Michael.
May as well have had Jason. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was not the worst movie ever. But then they had Halloween Kills, and that was just, wow.
Worse.
They went off the rails with that one and changed a lot of mythology.
Changed the things from the first movie.
Yeah, and then there's this one that just sort of forgot about Michael for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And went with a whole different, what the heck are they doing? Somebody else.
Well, it was directed by David Gordon Green.
And just today I was reading that
just gonna
David
bring that
Gordon
up.
Green has
Yeah.
just been signed to remake the entire Exorcist trilogy.
Huh.
Now, there's some movies that didn't need remaking.
Now, the second original Exorcist movie wasn't great.
Yeah, that was just crap. But 1 and 3 were really good.
1 and 3 were really good.
I don't see a modernization of that
what
being
he's
worthwhile.
gonna do with these, yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the lack of special effects in those was actually what helped a lot. It made it much more realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Written by John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, not really, but they created the characters, and Brad Paul Logan, who probably gets the blame for a lot of this. Stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Kyle Richards, Annie Machiak, and Will Patton. Hour and 51 minutes. Trailer in the usual place.
And another thing that disappointed me in this, I mean, of the many disappointments, how little Will Patton does. I was expecting him to come back and be the kick-ass hero again.
He was in the first movie. He was kind of absent from the second movie. I expected they were saving him to save the day and redeem himself in this one.
No, he's just kind of a washed-up, beat-up, old retired guy.
He gets like two
who
little
has
scenes.
A crush.
A scene in the grocery store.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah. That's just no.
It's just sad what they did to his character.
He was completely unnecessary here,
and totally not the hero that I was hoping he would be.
Spoiler free. It's going to be a Halloween horror movie, right? You know, the one with Michael Myers in it. Well, there's a shocking beginning, which I liked that first 10 minutes. That was good. Then after a while,
doesn't involve Michael, but it's good. Yeah.
Then after a while, we started wondering, as it goes on, maybe a bit too long with this new character named Corey, Laurie and her granddaughter Allison, and town drama. There's how long was this thing? It was an hour and 51 minutes. I'll bet an hour and 25 minutes of this.
Where's Michael?
Michael didn't even show up.
It does reach that point. Like, this is Halloween movie, right? With Michael Myers.
The eventual final payoff is okay with a decent climax, but there should have been a lot more to that. The cast is excellent. The production values are top notch, but it was really a disappointing way to wrap up the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
you get attached to these characters over, let's just say 3 movies. But then we focus everything on a brand new character that had not appeared in the other 2 movies.
Yeah.
All right, spoil it for us. You're not missing much.
Well, I'm not going to spoil it, because, still there's
a lot of
the
other ones.
There's a lot of people. Those weren't new movies. This is brand new. A lot of people haven't seen this yet.
Werewolf by Night wasn't new.
Well, that's a short. Oh, okay. It's a short. That doesn't count.
Start off with some of it then.
Yeah, we'll tell you some of it. Well, back in Haddonfield on Halloween 2019, Corey goes over to a rich family's house to babysit. The mother says that little Jeremy has heard voices and wets the bed ever since last year with all that Michael Myers stuff that went on. Well, they watched The Thing, which is always a good movie for scared little kids. Yeah. Well, I think that he was maybe putting it on with Mom a little bit. He's not as much of a scared little boy as Mom thinks he is. Well, Corey comes out of the kitchen, finds the front door open, and Jeremy is gone. And he hears screaming coming from upstairs, so he runs to investigate. Well, he gets locked in the attic because Jeremy has tricked him. In a panic, Corey kicks the door open, but unfortunately Jeremy is right on the other side and goes flying, and they're on the 3rd floor. The parents arrive just in time to see Jeremy fall to his death. And credits roll.
He said, Jeremy, I'm going to kill you. And then the next thing you see is the kid fall into his death.
Really does accidentally kill him.
Fingers were pointed afterwards.
Yeah. Well, Laurie Strode rehashes what's gone on before, including the events of the previous film. At the end of all that, Michael Myers vanished. His house was demolished. Over the next few years, the entire town turns in on itself in terror.
I remember at the end of the previous movie, it was like he wasn't after Laurie at all. It was just he wanted to stand in that house. He wanted to stand and stare out the window. He wasn't obsessed with her at all. She had nothing to do with it. It was about the house.
And they took that away from him. Yeah. Meanie heads. Yeah. Well, Laurie eventually bought a new house, and it's now 4 years later, and she's writing a book about her story.
Now, if you watch the first 2 movies, she was mentally screwed up. PTSD and post-traumatic stress and all kinds of just mental issues. And here
paranoia
she's like,
and living in a fortress.
Yeah.
And here she's just a normal person living in a normal house again.
Completely over it, healed, mentally normal, as if the past 40 years had never happened.
Not 100%, but 90% better. Yeah.
Well, if they had if they had killed Michael Myers or put him back in jail or seen him, permanently destroyed or something, that would make sense. But he disappeared.
Yeah, he's still out there. And
as
she's
paranoid
just
as she was, there's no way she's going to just assume he's dead.
Yeah. Well, Corey, the guy from who was the babysitter, rides his bike to work. And we see that Haddonfield isn't the nice, clean town it used to be. He arrives at work at the town junkyard. Ronald, the owner, gives Corey his old motorcycle. We see a homeless guy who walks past a suspicious-looking tunnel. Corey's got a reputation as a child killer and pedophile now, but Laurie looks out after him. The two of them slash the tires of the bully who picks on Corey.
Did Corey go to jail or anything? I assume
No.
he got off on a technicality or something.
There was a trial.
Yeah.
There's a trial mentioned, but no, he never did time for it.
But everybody thinks he did it, and everybody blames him.
Well, he did do it. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, but it was an accident.
Yeah. Allison, Laurie's granddaughter, is living with her, works at the hospital. Corey offers to fix her car. Allison asks him out, even though Deputy Doug is interested in her. Frank, who isn't Officer Hopkins anymore, is interested in Laurie.
He has retired.
We see that some of the townspeople really hate Laurie, blaming her for Michael's shenanigans.
She egged on the mentally disabled man. She put him all up to this.
Yeah, she gets stopped in the street with some angry people. Well, Corey still gets the blame for killing that kid several years ago. So they're both kind of pariahs in town.
Yeah, we're like 20 minutes in at this point, right?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
And
No, it's been 40 minutes at this point.
Michael is going to be in this. It's been 40 minutes so far. Yes,
40 minutes with no Michael.
We actually noted this here. Yeah. Well, the bully with the flat tire and his friends attack Corey and break his glasses. They throw Corey over the bridge and drive away. Something under the bridge grabs Corey and drags him away. Corey runs into Michael Myers in the sewer, and Michael almost kills him until he sees Corey's past and lets him go.
Okay, now Corey is standing in the sewer, and he looks down this little side tunnel, and an arm reaches out of the side tunnel and grabs Corey, and apparently he's now telepathic and can read Corey's past. We don't really see Michael. It's just an arm. So I'm not going to count this one.
Yeah.
We know it's him, but you don't see him.
And on the way out, Corey kills the crazy old homeless man, sort of in self-defense.
And he feels a lot better after killing this guy.
He does.
He takes out a little bit of his frustration on the homeless man.
Corey takes Allison to the house where he killed Jeremy and tells her the whole story. Deputy Doug gets on Allison's case about seeing Corey, the child killer. They're out having a bite to eat, and Deputy Doug comes over. Allison gets passed over at for a promotion at work because her boss, Dr. Mathis, is sleeping with the other nurse. So do we?
Yeah, a little more.
A little more. Okay. Well, Deputy Doug goes looking for Corey to stir up some trouble and finds the dead homeless man. And then he finds Corey, follows him into the sewer tunnels, where Michael and Corey work together to kill him. Michael is really slow and weak, but as he stabs Doug repeatedly, he seems to pep up a lot. Apparently, death recharges him.
All right. Well, there's this place we want to stop, I think.
Yeah.
Corey and Michael are working together, a tag team of doom, to wipe out the rest of Haddonfield.
Or are they? Is it all just in Corey's head?
Yeah. At this point, we were thinking maybe Corey was hallucinating Michael and just doing all this. Yeah. And it wasn't really until the end we were sure.
And, things happen from here. But
Sorta.
still, it's awfully Corey heavy.
Oh, yeah, this was Corey's movie. This was not about Michael and Laurie.
Yeah.
2/3 of this movie is Corey's murder story.
Actually, I saw a spoof poster. Well, you showed me that spoof poster that somebody made the Halloween Ends poster and called it Corey's story.
Yeah, which it is. Yeah, this is not a Halloween movie. This is not a Michael Myers movie. This is Corey the serial killer movie.
It was not good.
All right, well, we're not going to spoil the ending, but because Michael does eventually show up and things happen.
Yeah.
If Corey and his past are so well known in Haddonfield, why is this film the first time we're hearing anything about him? This was the third film of a trilogy by the same director. This character should have appeared in at least the second movie, if not the first. Well, if he was going to be the central character in this film, and he definitely was, he should have been a part of the previous two films. Suddenly, we're saddled with this new character, and Laurie and Michael are essentially background characters for the majority of the film. Michael's only been missing for 4 years, but Laurie and everyone else act like they know he's dead. Laurie is far more normal acting mentally than she has been for the past 40 years. And they all know he's still out there. It's just an unbelievable change for her, especially after 40 years of dealing with PTSD. Legitimate PTSD, because she knew he was alive and out there and after her. The final battle at the end was pretty good, but the first 90 minutes wasn't so hot. Still, we can finally say that Michael is really, really dead this time, right?
Oh, they always do that. How many times has he died in the movies?
But Laurie does mention that if evil comes back, it'll be in an entirely different form.
Maybe a new trilogy. Did you see where there's a you folks might have seen there's a petition out there actually, people petitioning Blumhouse to redo this movie.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, but there's a lot of anger about this, a lot of dislike, and I think it's only got like 39% on Rotten Tomatoes.
If this had been a middle of the run,
rating.
One of the Halloween movies out of a whole long series, it would probably be fine.
It's supposed to be the culmination. It should be the greatest one ever.
Yeah, this is the
And
end.
boy, it's not
This is
the
the
greatest one
climax.
ever.
This is the peak. No, this was a wasted time.
Yeah.
A lost opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to say it's the
disappointing.
worst Halloween movie of the series. It's still not. But it was awful. It really was.
It was disappointing.
All right, well, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.